Alright, welcome to multiplying binomials. Now you'll notice in this very first example, what we have two terms, and we have two terms, and so we're going to say this is a 2 times 2, or a binomial times a binomial. Remember, the word bi just really means 2, and nomial you can think of as like number or numeral or term, so 2 terms. Okay, now how do you do this? How do you multiply 2 parentheses with 2 things inside? Well, what I'm going to do in this first example, I'm going to illustrate is called the box method. Alright? Now the box method is most effective for the greatest number of students. So you might have seen FOIL before. I'll discuss FOIL later on. But for right now, what do you do with the box method? Well, we draw a box, almost like a Punnett square like you see in biology, and we'll put these binomials as sides of the box, lining up the terms. Okay? So there we have 2x, the x plus 3. Here we have the x minus 7. And notice I'm lining them up with the columns and the rows. So here, in this box right here, we see there's an x and there's an x. And we're saying, well, what is x times x? Of course, that gives us x squared. Okay, let's continue on this x right here, and let's drop down this 3. What is x times 3? Well, of course, y'all know that to be 3x. Okay, what about right here? We have this negative 7 times x, so this x continues on down. Well, that of course will give us negative 7x. And lastly, we have negative 7 times times positive 3, which will of course give us negative 21. Now when I write this out, what does that look like? Well, that looks like this. X squared and plus 3x, because it's positive, minus 7x minus 21, because it's negative. Remember, minus and negative are the same thing. Now from here, all we have to do is combine our like terms. It's kind of the last little step. We get this x squared. 3x minus 7x will of course give us negative 4x minus 21. Alright, and guys, this is how you multiply binomials. Let's go on to a more difficult example. Okay, here we have example 2, and we have 3x minus 7 times 2x plus 8. Now what in the world is our box method going to look like? Well, I draw my box. Let's go ahead and underline this very first part in this nice pinkish purple. So we have 3x minus 7. Remember, we line it up with the rows. And here, on this other one, we have the 2x plus 8. Well, 2x plus 8. Here we run, on this one we line it up on the rows. The first one we lined up on the columns. Okay, now if you will recall, so we're going to say, in this very first box we have our 3x times our 2x. And guys, what is 2x times 3x? Well, 2 times 3 is 6, and x times x is of course x squared. Okay, continuing on across, we have 2x times negative 7, which will of course give us negative 14x. Down below, of course, we have the 8 times 3x, which will give us 24x. And lastly, guys, that 8 carries across, that negative 7 carries down, and 8 times negative 7 will be negative 56. Now, what is this going to look like when we write it out? Well, we'll always write our highest degree first, so 6x squared minus 14x plus 24x minus 56. Remember, we have to combine our like terms, and when we do that, we get 6x squared, and of course negative 14x plus 24x is going to be positive 10x minus 56. Remember, negatives take away from positive. Negative 14x is almost like it's subtracting away from the 24x. Okay, this example 3 is unnecessary for the Google form, so I want you to know that this is just a bonus example to really help you out if you really want to push yourself to the next level. Notice here we have 1, 2, 3 terms times 1, 2. We're going to need to draw a 3 by 2 box. So what would a 3 by 2 box look like? Well, it's now a rectangle, and so you have 3 columns and 2 rows. Okay, pretty easy. Once again, let's go ahead and choose this nice pinkish purple. We'll say 2x squared plus 5x minus 7. And then down below, using this orange, we'll do the 2x plus 4. Or to the side, should I say. Now from here, remember, we're going to go across. We're saying, 2x is going to be multiplied by the first, second, and third term. So 2x times 2x squared, well, 2 times 2 is 4, and x times x squared is going to be 3 total x's. Here we have 2 times 5, which will give us 10x times x will give us 10x squared. And lastly, guys, we drop that negative 7. Negative 7 times 2x will give us negative 14x. Okay, let's go down to our bottom row. Here we have 4 times 2x squared. Well, guys, that's just 8x squared. So this is kind of nice. When you get to your constant, it's just that number 4 times your coefficient or your constant. So 4 times 5 is 20x, and 4 times negative 7 is negative 28. Now, something interesting happens here, and this happens kind of often. This first one will always be as is, 4x cubed. I can't really think of any examples where this will ever combine with anything. In fact, the first and the last will always essentially be the same. However, one thing that will sometimes happen, not always, but sometimes, is that your like terms will typically be in diagonals. So here we have 8x squared plus 10x squared. Well, we can just go ahead and skip ahead. Let's write that as plus 18x squared. Only do that if you are comfortable and you understand. Otherwise, write out the whole thing and then combine your like terms. All right, here in this next diagonal, we have 20x minus 14x, and that will give us plus 6x. And so this is our final term. And let's see, it's not a binomial, it's not a trinomial. I guess we'd call this a quadnomial. I'm not quite sure. All right, but it has 4 terms. And thank you for sticking around for that example if you did.